for our audience to see you.
Yep.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, lead heads. Welcome back to another episode of the Talking Lead podcast. I am your host, Lefty, bringing you all the leducation. 10 years of leducating the unleducated here on the Talking Lead podcast. And we just did a big celebration, celebrating our 10 years, our 500th episode, and our new logo. And one lucky person won $6,000 worth of prizes and swag. So congratulations to that winner, and he did claim it. So for you hopefuls that were hoping that the guy wouldn't claim it and that we would do another pick, you're out of luck. So he claimed it, and he seems to be receiving all the stuff now. So hopefully we'll start seeing pictures of that on the interwebs and whatnot. But never fear, because we will put together another giveaway. Maybe not this year, but maybe the first of next year. But there's still a little bit of time. You never know. We may throw another one together before the end of the year. But be checking our social medias on Instagram. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. We are now on Rumble. That's where I'm trying to post all of our videos and get away from that boob tube, YouTube, the commie station there. So check us out on Rumble. Make sure you're following us there. And then, of course, any of the podcasting apps. We're on all of them. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. You can find us everywhere, even in Idaho. We've been known to show up in Idaho. So joining us today, and you guys know that I've kind of started this monthly segment. It's kind of unofficial, but I've always wanted to do a monthly knife segment, and we've done it for the last 3 months, and keeping the ball rolling with this episode. I think I'm calling it From the Sheath. What do you guys think about that name? Is that like a good name, From the Sheath?
That works.
Yeah, you dig?
I like it. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
It makes sense. It's practical. Very good. So this episode, we have gathered the minds and brains and creativity from, we got Idaho, 2 of you from Idaho, and one in an undisclosed location. I'm sure he doesn't want his location known. So, and these are the masterminds behind, and you've heard me talk about it the last few episodes, the release of the new Buckmaster 2.0, the Dive Pro. Did I get that right? Is that
technically combat diver? Yeah.
Combat diver. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Combat Dive Pro.
Not to be confused with a combat swimmer.
Which we'll hear about.
We're gonna hear a lot about the knife today. We're gonna go behind the scenes, talk about how it got started, the design, and to where we finally ended up. And I've got mine right here with the finished product. Our faithful lead heads have seen me. I've held this up several times during episodes, been showing it to some of our other guests that we've had on the show. So we're going to go into details about this bad boy today. And joining me, ladies and gentlemen, to do this, and I've got your bios here. So, and you heard this guy last episode or 2 episodes ago on the AK Corner?
2, yeah.
It was about 2 episodes ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Neyman is joining us for his like second official full episode. So Rich has got a very diverse background. I don't know that we really talked about your background much on the AK Corner, but you attended the University of Oregon, and you really boned up on the military history while you were at Oregon, and you're like the authorities in military history, which is where you get a lot of your knowledge when you're writing your books. So Rich is also an author. He's written 2 books that I know of. Is there another 1 or 2 that are hidden?
There's one in the works, and it's on this series, and it will be bouncing back and forth from Commander Coulter's life in the teams to current, and we're going to be bouncing back and forth. You finally talked him into not technically writing a book, but close.
Twist,
and,
right?
It should be pretty interesting. Yeah.
So looking forward to that. So Oh, go ahead. What's it going to be called?
It's going to be called Buckmaster Combat Series by Commander DT Coulter, SEAL retired, and Richard Neyman. So the commanders first. And I start the book with the commander in 1967. And I won't let too much.
Don't give it away now.
But,
give it away.
I'm not.
Save a little.
But,
save a little bit.
But it's going to be amazing. It's starting with his history. So I feel very blessed. And
we'll talk about that.
Family asked. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So Rich has written the Buckmaster Knives, the authorized history of models 184 and 185, which is this that book?
Yes, sir.
I've got here. I've got. And then we gave away this book on the AK corner, the M9 Bayonet, the authorized history. One of our lucky lead heads has won that, and you've got that. You're going to get it autographed by
CJ today. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I've gotten a couple of emails from the guy. He's anxious to get it, so I let him know that it's coming, and it's going to be coming with some extras. So.
Oh, okay.
He's cool with it.
Cool.
Now, something else we didn't know about Rich is Rich is an Eagle Scout as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing like that, man. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, I was. That was back in the '80s. So yeah, I was It's pretty amazing. I even got a flag that flew over the White House when President Reagan was president. So that meant a lot to me.
Very nice. Also joining us from Idaho, and he's no stranger to you lead heads. He's been on the show several times. I think this is like your second or third full episode, other than the shows that we do. Is CJ Buck, CEO and chairman of Buck Knives. Are you there?
I'm here. Are you done? Is that it?
No.
Is that my big introduction?
That's it. Drum roll, please. That's all you get. But our longtime listeners are familiar with CJ. CJ, like I said, CEO, chairman of Buck Knives. He is the fourth generation family member to run Buck Knives, which CJ started working back in 1978. So what are you, like 6 when you started working there?
Yeah, a bit older than that.
Working on the production line, building the 110 folding Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like your favorite, since that's the one you started to get your teeth on?
One of, yeah.
One of.
It was.
Okay.
It's the Goldilocks knife. It's not too big, not too small, not too light, not too heavy, just right. Okay. And that's why it did so well and continues to survive. We introduced that in '64, so it continues to be a top seller all these years later.
Oh, absolutely. It's a main staple for Buck Knives. Now, here's something I didn't know about you is the American Knife and Tool Institute that you co-founded that back in 1996.
Yeah, that was so there was some legislation in California that had to do with a reinterpretation of what is a dirk and dagger. So when they reinterpreted what the law said, it made a lot of things that used to be legal now illegal. And so we went in and I worked hand in hand with Lefty with Benchmade knives. And so he and I went to Sacramento and actually got new language introduced, basically saying a folding knife couldn't be a dirk or dagger. So it was we did accomplish something in that interpretation battle, but that was in 1995, and realized the industry needed a common voice, and so he and I started the American Knife and Tool Institute.
Very cool. And is that a nationwide organization? It
is. Yeah. It pretty much it from an analogy standpoint, it would be like being it's an industry association, and so it really encompasses. We have members across our entire industry, especially those who feel more responsible for, for providing resources to benefit the industry. So we have large knife dealers, manufacturers, importers. We have hunters, fishermen. We have the trades, the union trades, carpenters, electricians. I mean, all the people that use knives. That constituency from a consumer standpoint as well as an industry standpoint. We all have a reason to want to be able to carry the tools of our choice, and knives are one of those tools.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me of like the USCCA for the firearms industry, because what you guys are, your nonprofit, and what your goal is to, I guess, influence legislation and laws so that people can make, buy, sell, carry knives and edged weapons.
And we work a lot with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation because hunters are so interested. They're probably one of the more travel-centric knife carriers, people that hunt. We also have, so we do some federal legislation as well as we do state by state. And we've had enormous successes in getting state laws changed. There's a lot of archaic terms that have been built into law. So what is a dirk? Well, a couple hundred years ago, everybody knew exactly what that meant. Today, not so much. We don't. It's not a common vernacular now. That's used. So when we find these archaic terms, we would then go in and say, you know what? If you want a certain blade length, like don't say Bowie knives are illegal, but if you want 10-inch blade to be too long, then specify it. Tell us objectively. Tell us exactly what it is you want to make legal or illegal, and then we can talk about it. So what we do is we go in, we eliminate those archaic terms, or we try and get a law that makes no sense. We try and get that stricken completely, and we've had very, very good success sitting down with legislators and going, this knife is legal, this knife is illegal. God, they're almost exactly the same in use. Let's change this law so that this confusion doesn't take place. And in the current environment where, people are worried about interactions with law enforcement, if you want to have a very irritated interaction with law enforcement, force police officers to enforce a law that doesn't make any sense. That's the worst way. That's the best way to have the worst encounter with somebody. So if we can go in so things can be commonsensical, that's our goal.
Yeah, well, we all know how common sense and government works.
It's a square peg in a round hole, but you just got to push it hard enough.
Yeah. Now, we talked about this a little bit in episodes past, is that you're a member, you're like one of the first members of the Boone and Crockett Club as well. Yeah, not one of the, so Boone and Crockett has 100 regular members. It was initiated by Teddy Roosevelt back in, I'm going to blank on it. Well, yeah, I guess you were
like 1887, I think, is when it was. Okay. December 5th. That date I do remember. But he called a group together, and that was the birthplace of American conservation, the North American model for conservation, and it has been so successful. The wildlife populations in the early 1900s were beginning to go extinct. The fear was that elk were going away, moose was going away, antelope were going away because the market hunters were being so effective. They were just eliminating wildlife, feeding themselves, building railroads, doing all the stuff we had to do for Manifest Destiny, but they were using wildlife to feed that effort, and wildlife just could not sustain that type of pressure. So Teddy Roosevelt saw it happening and did something about it, being quite the conservation visionary. And there's so many groups that have spawned from the Boone and Crockett Club, from Ducks Unlimited to all the critter groups today. That so many of them came from interaction with the Boone and Crockett Club. Game limits, hunting licenses, wildlife refuges, the whole Department of the Interior was just part of that. So I'm really proud, because that means a lot to me, to be able to leave wild green spaces full of life to my grandkids. That means a lot to me.
Now, is it by design that there's only 100 regular members?
It is, yeah. No, it was limited because Teddy Roosevelt just felt like if it got too big, it would not be able to function anymore. And so they limited it, and it continues to that day. And you have to be nominated and approved. And so anyway, yeah, proud to be a part of it.
And what I meant to say was you're one of only 100 regular members of the Boone and Crockett Club.
Oh, yes, sir.
Pretty exclusive. Yes. Pretty exclusive. Yeah. And then also, we didn't know this about you, CJ, is in 2016, you were inducted into the Cutlery Hall of Fame. I didn't know
it's funny. It's funny because as you started this segment with the American Knife and Tool Institute, that's basically the reason. So the Cutlery Hall of Fame tries to recognize people that have made a significant impact to the industry. So my grandfather, with the introduction of the 110, turned our industry on its head. So he was inducted in the 80s. My father, I'm blanking on the reason, but he was inducted in the 90s. And then through the co-founding of the American Knife and Tool Institute, I was nominated and inducted in the 2000s.
Where is that located? Do you know?
I think it's more of an idea than a location.
Is that what it is? You know, like the Baseball Hall of Fames, and like Canton, Ohio, and
yeah. I don't know that the Cutlery Hall of Fame is a location. I think it's more of an idea, and more of a record than a museum.
Gotcha. Well, maybe you should make a museum out of it. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. You guys got the start there at your Post Falls office too. How's that museum coming along? I know when I came up and visited last time, you guys were working on like a museum type.
Yeah, continuing. That continues. We haven't done the remodel. We're revamping our entire front lobby. That's going to happen in the next spring.
Okay.
So this is our busy season right now. We don't do anything to disrupt ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Going into hunting and holiday, but next spring when it slows down a bit, we're going to do a whole new revamp. Already starting to set aside. Different memorabilia. Things that my father owned, grandfather owned, old historical knives. It's actually I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. I can't wait to come up and check it out when you guys finish that. Now I got to talk to you when we get done. I've got to get another Skinner because last season I lost my Skinner, so I got to get another one before I go out. So we got to talk about that. Also joining us this episode. And this is his first, official full Talking Lead episode. He's been on before. We introduced him at SHOT Show 2 or 3 years ago, and it was talking about this idea of the release of this new Buckmaster 2.0 and all the great things that it could be and become. And ladies and gentlemen, it's Commander. Did you say your full name?
Just go by Tom.
Okay.
Yep.
Commander Tom Coulter, ladies and gentlemen, SEAL, U.S. Navy, retired. Commander Coulter spent 27 years as a U.S. Navy SEALs BUDS. He was in class, now I may say this wrong, 1967 0240. What is that? How do you say that?
At the time, on the East Coast where training was being conducted, the designation for the classes was 6702, representing the second class of 67. It also equated with the West Coast, which was class 40.
Okay.
So that's the reason for the 670240.
There you go.
Indication.
Very good. And when were the SEALs originally started?
Well, President Kennedy started the SEALs based on selecting members of various underwater demolition teams at the time. And they formed up SEAL Team 1 on the West Coast and SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast. And that occurred around 61.
Okay. So, I mean,
so it's been about 50 years. It's a 50-year process, of which I spent 25 years of it immersed into it.
Right. And you're kind of one of the first.
No, I'm not one of the first SEALs, nor am I one of the first frogmen.
You're one of the early SEALs. From its inception.
With the early SEALs, when you start talking about the throughput in buds and other contributing assets, when it was 50, we've celebrated 55 years since we graduated, so
yeah,
it moves on.
So you are considered one of the leading technology security individuals in the world. I guess that's in your private business that you have there. I don't know how much you want to talk about that.
It's what I do and what I have done for the Department of Energy and for the Department of Homeland Security is I have investigated both domestically and internationally high activity radiological sources to determine their vulnerability. And if they were vulnerable, I would recommend mitigation solutions to rectify that problem.
Now, is it true that the Department of Energy is, I don't know how to say this, better, well-equipped weaponry, I guess, than any other government agency?
Well, they're not equipped with anything, but they have national laboratories that produce product and handle the transport, if you will, of nuclear weapons and nuclear material.
I guess what I meant was along the lines of their security, the personnel that they have employed for their security, as far as
they certainly, it's not so much if you go to Crystal City in Virginia where they're housed. It's not like you're going to run into a bunch of armed guards, but what you will know is that anytime there's any movement of any material, which can be used for nefarious purposes, it's very well protected.
Right. I think what I read in the article that I read is, as far as ammo goes, they're the highest or one of the highest consumers of the ammunition. So
I don't think that's correct.
that's okay. May not be.
And I only say this because when I was assigned as the executive officer at SEAL Team 6, my 9mm allocation was larger than the United States Marine Corps. Yeah. So it's unlikely that they would have surpassed that. But ammunition has the wars in Afghanistan and other countries have perpetuated the development of lots of ammunition.
Yes.
Both foreign and domestic.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to feel that here on a consumer level here in America. I think a lot of that allotment is going over to
well, it will, and it has. It's never sort of rescinded after our pullout of Afghanistan. It was just sort of flat. But now, when we're arming others and providing them ammunition, it becomes imperative that we get them the best ammunition we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is that you were involved in the training of more than 7,000 foreign special forces operators and more than 70% of today's top SEAL commanders.
That number may be slightly skewed. Certainly thousands, whether it's 7,000 or not. But I retired from the military in '92, and many of the officers that served under me have advanced and are now representing the leadership of naval special warfare. So it was, but that's what officers do. You train your relief. Starting the first day you're in the job, you start training your relief so that when you leave, the position will be filled by a qualified individual.
Now, are there any notable names, personalities that we know of today that maybe you trained?
Well, it's not so much I trained. When you start talking about trained, I have trained with and served with.
Sure.
And without their permission, I would be reluctant to provide you any names of folks. But you can safely assume that the first group of flag officers in SEAL team I worked with, worked for, and enjoyed working with them. So, and that would include about 20 or so flag officers.
Sure. So the answer is yes, we probably know some of the people that you worked with. Let's leave it at that. How about that?
Whiskey River Beef, farm to table with a twist. Come along with us on a quest towards achieving self-sufficiency in food production and fostering a robust local food source to promote good health. Stock up with premium Tennessee beef, unparalleled in flavor and tenderness. You can be confident that you're receiving beef with no added growth hormones or implants. Always pasture raised, locally USDA processed, and shipped straight to your home. Whiskey River Beef is grass and whiskey mash fed and finished, and is at least 14 days dry aged to enhance the tenderness and give you the most robust flavor imaginable. Go to whiskeyriverbeef.com today to order. Visit us on Instagram at Whiskey River Life and on Facebook at Whiskey River Beef LLC. Whiskey River Beef is a proud sponsor of the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade.
You also wrote the operational requirement in 1984 for the survival knife package, which led to the development of the Buckmaster Model 184. And subsequently, the SEAL purchased, 2,500 of those?
They purchased a good number of them. My participation, because I was involved with research, development, test, and evaluation of Special Warfare Group 2, my issue was to solicit inputs from the field about a general purpose knife to replace the standard issued K-bar that had been used for many years. So that's my involvement, was to come up with characteristics of this knife. And then as I did that, I subsequently went to a new duty station, and the knife matured and developed after my departure into what it was today. I wasn't involved with the operational evaluation or the technical evaluation of that particular blade, but I did have input into the operational requirements. And an operational requirement is necessary for any new product development.
Now with your time as Chief Staff Officer with the Naval Special Warfare Group 2, you had started a high-tech procurement arm of the Naval Special Warfare. Talk about that.
Well, that started before then. When I was, after graduate school, I was assigned to the Naval Sea Systems Command in Washington. And that was basically a payback tour for having them send me to graduate school. When I got there, I was assigned to the diving and salvage area. Naval Special Warfare had a small budget to support Special Operational Requirements 3801 and 3802. So what I tried to do, and eventually did, along with the assistance of some very capable men, was to consolidate. So we were working for like 3 or 4 different laboratories, as opposed to the laboratories were working for us. So what I did was I established the first Special Warfare Group development arm, if you will, and it was in the weapons area of NAVC, and it was identified as 06Z. So that's
So not just knives, but
oh no, it was not just knives. It was submersibles. It was dry deck shelters. It was anything to support SEALs in the way of life support systems or weaponry, if you will.
right. Very good. And I guess with that, back in '84, '85, involvement with the Buckmaster, that's kind of led to the journey to where we're at today, talking about the new Combat Dive Pro 2.0.
Well, the development of the knife, as I have written, was basically a project that took 55 years to bear fruit. And when I say bear fruit, from the first time I ever received a fixed blade knife in the military till the time CJ and his folks were able to put in my hand the most suitable replacement available. That took 55 years and lots of input, but it could not have happened without CJ. And if we had to talk about someone who was ramrodding it, that would be Rich. I have the blades, probably about 14 blades, and they started with the K-bar and they ended with the combat diver knife, as I refer to it as. And that was through 4 prototypes, 1 from Bob McDonald and 3 from Doug Olson, a pre-prototype from Victor Bortuno, and we settled on the blade type and started moving forward, and we just chipped away at it. And the last time I saw you, it was when we got the go-ahead from CJ that this was going to be actually a project, and he was more than good to his word. So without CJ, there is no combat diver knife.
There you go. Now I muted you two guys, so feel free to unmute when you want to chime in, Rich and CJ. That's some background noise there. So how many years was the 184 in service with the SEALs, would you say? Do you know?
Well, I think there still might be some floating around in some supply locker. But
I want to find those and
I'm sorry?
I said I want to find those and claim them.
They're rare. They were probably in service for about, I want to say 20 years from the issuing time until, and basically when you start talking about it after 9/11, all of the operational kit changed, and it changed dramatically. And it was sort of, if you wanted what you wanted, you just went out and bought it. And if whatever kind of knife that was, because as the war progressed, it became apparent that there wasn't going to be a lot of diving involved. So the pursuit of a diving knife wasn't necessarily going to be the answer, and therefore it never received a lot of attention, which I pursued sort of after it was apparent to me that we weren't making any progress in the combat diver's knife. Now, it should be noted that when we talk about the combat diver's knife, a combat diver is different than a combat swimmer. SEALs, for the most part, are combat swimmers, and they go horizontally from point A to point B, and they may have several way stops and timed evolutions. A diver is vertical, from the surface to whatever. But clearly, the identification of a combat diver's knife is a little bit more marketable and appealing than a combat swimmer knife, which makes you think of Phelps doing flip turns in an Olympic pool. So we wanted to get away from that.
You guys have anything to add to that? Rich, CJ?
Along that line, not really. That was my project as a 23-year-old kid. So I was special projects manager at the time.
Talk about the inception of that idea for the 184, how that came about there at Buck.
It's an interesting story in that, so my father, Charles T. Chuck Buck, so my father had some pretty strong feelings about Buck Knives not making a fighting or tactical knife. We were a hunting, everyday carry knife company. We dabbled in kitchen cutlery on the side, but so that was where my father's head was at. So it was quite an education for him when we first had a company up in Oceanside approach us, who one of the members of that company happened to be a dealer of ours, so was familiar with our product line. And they approached us, would we consider making this particular knife? And it was the sawtooth, hollow handle survival knife that a custom knife maker in Arkansas had made really popular. And then Sylvester Stallone made even more popular with the First Blood movies.
Yeah. So
people just got enamored with this concept, and so it was a learning experience for us to see more the tool survival aspect. How this particular knife really wasn't a good fighting knife. It was capable, but that's not what it was designed for. It was very much a survival tool, and once we got our head around that, then my father was okay with us building it.
And I know we talked about this on a previous episode, but I mean, it was a hugely popular knife for the public. Did you guys have like an estimated amount, how many of those that you produced?
Yeah, that's another interesting story. So so we put the knife together. We worked with this company up in Oceanside, Frobus, Qualitech and Frobus. We worked with this company to fine-tune the designs, and it's always the challenge as anyone in manufacturing to anybody can invent anything, and it might be impossible to manufacture. And then so you have to take what you're given and you have to dial it in so that you can repeatedly produce it. You can manufacture it. So you have to polish off some rough edges, maybe round some corners, maybe enlarge some holes, maybe create more commonality within the knife. And you have to do that without losing the magic of the original sample, and which is super easy to do. You can commoditize out so much value trying to make it manufacturable, and you have to fight that. So you have to have this balance. So we worked for well over a year on dialing in the manufacturing processes, how we're going to heat treat this thing, how we're going to make it watertight. We're going to deal with corrosion resistance. Can we put a compass in it? Oh, no. Stainless steel tends to be a little magnetic. So, no, that didn't really work as well as we hoped it would. Like, there were all kinds of pieces that we had to dial in over time, which makes the early versions of that knife very collectible, because we were making changes as we were going. Yeah, so we worked that out, and unbeknownst to us, the First Blood movie was just about to be introduced, and so we introduced our Buckmaster in 1984, and the First Blood movie came out, and so we had a forecast. I want to say we'd taken it out to the reps who didn't really want to sell it. They didn't know how to sell it. It was weird looking. They didn't want to sell it. And so we had an annual forecast, I want to say, of about 2,500 pieces. And that first year, we sold well over 50,000 pieces because the First Blood movie hit, and everybody, you couldn't get the custom knife because the guy could only make a few of them, but you could get a Buckmaster knife.
Brilliant. It was brilliant, and you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Hollywood. Oh, best salesman.
Yeah, they both help and hurt at times.
That's true. That's true. Definitely. Now, Rich,
and I was one of those. I was one of those young guys back in 1985. I saw it at the Ace Hardware, and I saved up a whole bunch of my lifeguard money because it cost me $100. I even remember to this day, it's $168 back then, and that equates to like 420 or 415 in today's money to buy the thing. But I love that knife, especially the allure that it's a wilderness survival and the seal allure and everything. This is all pre-internet, you know. But for Buck to sell 50,000 plus units, and the original reason it was made was for a delivery to the SEAL teams that they ended up taking delivery after they finally got the final go ahead after it was released to the public. And that was CJ pushing that with his dad, and the factory people. Was real tough for them to build it, to put it together, all the processes. Matter of fact, I have a special one here I wanted to show.
Sure.
This it was a gift to me when I was 50 years old from Commander Coulter. Okay, and it's one of the only all titanium. It's so light I can't tell you. The pins are titanium on the inside. If everybody knows how these are built, there's threads up to here, and then there's a bolt that goes into it, and then they would put like a epoxy and dabble it straight down to make it waterproof. This particular one, even the bolt is handmade out of titanium. It was non-magnetic. We were talking about magnetic, and it's super hard to put an edge on this titanium alloy. It's beyond, and it's solid titanium. It's not sintered like the model 186, which was Knife of the Year titanium. But it's just amazing. And it had, this one was made in 1984 by hand and heat treated by Paul Boss. Okay, because Boss would still heat treat. Now notice, see the anchors had the twist.
Yeah.
In here too. Okay, yeah. That's the original way that Buck, that's the original prototype. They had the shelving. Yeah, and the reason was for being right-handed, the anchors wouldn't cut in your hand. Now, the current, the Buckmaster, actually, the anchors ended up cutting into your hand, especially guys with bigger hands. But everything else was there. Commander Coulter did an upgrade that I thought was amazing. A diamond sharpening stone, so that makes sense. And then the sheath itself was handmade too. It's 2-piece clamshell, and that was also handmade by Harry Campheisen and Bob McDonald. Bob McDonald made this blade, and he was originally told by Chuck, in fact, that hey, he did it on a lathe back in the day, right? And he said that, well, I don't think we can do that, and the Buck engineers figured out how to do it finally. but it was super tough to.
How many of the
build this.
titaniums were made?
Titanium. This is the only I've heard from Leroy Reamer at Triple R Knives, who used to be at the custom shop. And CJ's part at Buck was actually the custom shop. That was his very first job, and he was doing that, and that's why Harry Campheisen of Jerry's Pawn Shop is the name of this place. But he worked with Mickey Finn and was a partner, and they were discussing these ideas in a bar, and
Perfect place.
Yeah, perfect place. And long story short, that ended up going directly to CJ. And I was told specifically again from Leroy that he thought there's 25, but I think that's incorrect. Not the way this thing was made. And Rick McDonald said that he remembers only one with the all titanium blade, because there were a few that, because Rick McDonald, Bob's son, he actually made the anchors and the handle and the lanyard and the pommel, and the cross guard.
Is that unscrewed?
But he says he yeah.
Take it out.
Yeah,
Let's
absolutely. Yeah.
Let's see it.
Yeah.
So
And there's a few
listening audience, it's unscrewing the
sorry.
the hollow grip.
And then there's actually an old compass in it, and it still works. And it works because it's not magnetic.
Because it's titanium.
Yep, it's titanium and it works. But I was so honored to have this. You guys have no idea, especially being a 50-year-old nerd from the 80s. and on top of it, being blessed to sit here with all you guys. And, I was just a kid when these guys were rocking and rolling. Commander Coulter was saving thousands of Americans with people not even knowing it. And he's a silent.
Millions of Americans.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, Commander.
Millions.
So those had hollow handles. What did you guys use them for? What did you use the hollow?
The idea of the pinions, if you will, was developed by me when I was asked by the folks at Mickey Finn, what did I think about the operational requirement? And as I said before, nothing gets built without an operational requirement. And what Chuck Buck, CJ's dad, did is he simply responded to an inquiry of which there were, I can't remember, half a dozen candidates that were going to try to produce this knife. And the Buckmaster was declared the winner. The pinions represent twofold. At the time, I had recently come from a SEAL delivery vehicle platoon, and I knew that two of these knives with these pinions would anchor a bottomed out SEAL delivery vehicle, or one of the knives anchored would retain your swim gear from floating away. So once you got up on the beach, you knew where to come to find it to get back. So that's the reason. The other reason that it's reversible is because you can repel with it. In other words, you can, you have the capability to put a carabiner in there, and then you can wedge it however you'd like to wedge it, and you can repel with it. As you can with the combat diver knife itself. That was one of the requirements that didn't change, fortunately.
Yeah, we're gonna get into the 2.0. I just kind of want to give our listeners a little brief history of the 184, the Buckmaster, just in general, and just kind of how it went from this to where it evolved to, because it's really a completely different knife for all.
Yeah, and that was the intention. You have to look at the Buckmaster 184 as a make-do knife. It does everything pretty well, but it's not specifically designed to be the precise surgical tool for a specific task. So it's it's still a make-do knife. You're using it, and there are many of the fixed blade knives that are out there are make-do knives. But when I had very little to do with anything except for those pinions, and it was interesting when I saw the prototypes, the first prototypes, I said, that's going to be a very interesting general purpose knife. I said, but it's not necessarily going to be the best diving knife, which at the time I was doing a lot of seal delivery vehicle work, and diving was what I did every day.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that the pinions were multi-purpose was always the goal. In other words, you could rappel with it, you could anchor with it, you could do all kinds of stuff with it. And when I was asked by the folks at Qualitech, what did I think of the operational requirement? I said, well, listen, I can't even comment on that. I said, that's a government document, and I'm unable to comment on it, and I wouldn't want to be accused of giving anybody any advantage. I said, but they said, what would you do, or what is not in the operational requirement? And the answer is, there was no anchoring system. And the anchoring system was added on, and the rest is sort of history.
Yeah. So again, back to the hollow round grip. Why round? Why hollow?
Well, if you're a combat swimmer and you have to take demolitions with you, the hollow handle will take 2 blasting caps, and those blasting caps are necessary to detonate. Someone's got to have them, and they weren't always easy to transport when you're swimming in to cap into a line. So this simplified that, but it was good for any numbers of things.
Sure.
You could, if you got the right cigarette lighter, I suppose that would work in there too.
Matches.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever it was going to be waterproof. And that's the important thing about that. And that was clearly one of the features I wanted to have the blade function in the same capacity.
To have the blade, and then you froze up.
I'm sorry? No, have the blade function in the same capacity. I knew after a prototype, we built a prototype hollow handled blade, but it was just going to be prohibitively expensive to reproduce. So the requirement for a waterproof hollow handle was eliminated. And that's why you're looking at a flat-sided knife now. But I mean, anybody who's held the prototype that I have that was manufactured by Doug Olson, it just has the right kind of feel, much like the 184. The 184 has the right kind of feel. It has the right kind of grip.
Very good. So again, I want to kind of compare and contrast the two to where we are today. So I guess it's a good time to segue over into 5 years in the making to the 2.0 here. So who wants to start us off on kind of the where this got its life from?
Yeah, I think Tom should start us off.
Let me take that one on.
Okay.
The 2.0, once we provided CJ with the results of what we called a technical evaluation I had 4 or 5 prototypes. We evaluated them weight and length and thickness and hardness and all the other stuff. It was apparent that the blade shape was going to be the defining aspect of this knife. And that's, as you can see, the blade shape is substantially different than the 184.
Yeah.
So once the blade shape, which was sort of a result of a mixture of ideas that I had with Victor Bortuno, that blade shape became my objective. In other words, a spear point blade shape was what I was fixed on, because the knife, what that knife is going to be used for mostly, if it's in the hands of a combat swimmer or a diver, is it's going to cut stuff. It's going to cut string. It's going to cut kelp. It's going to cut all kinds of rope, and it's going to be used to pry stuff, probably an abalone or two if you're not careful. But the idea here is that you have to have a blade that's thick enough, tough enough, and sharp enough to function, but it also has to do the job that you're going to do with it. Everybody's everyday carry knife is used to open boxes. Hardly ever, that's what people use them for.
Clean their fingernails out.
And clean their fingernails out. But anyway, this came about. The interesting point with this knife is that the first prototype that CJ and Buck Knives produced was what we call the pre-production prototype. And it was a beautiful piece of kit. And CJ pretty much autographed all of them. There was 38 of them made. And I tested them. I tested them operationally. I tested them in the water. I tested them cutting through stuff. And after what could be considered an operational evaluation, made some recommendations to CJ about different aspects of the knife. And Victor reshaped the handle, and we sort of gave that information back to CJ, and to his credit, he incorporated pretty much all of the changes and improved on other aspects of the blade. So basically the ultimate product is a combination of the pre-production prototype evaluation and CJ's interpretation. And he produced several prototypes, and the rest of it it's fundamentally history.
Well, Rich, hold up the two side by side if you would, and the handles. Show the difference in the handles. Can you tilt your screen down just a little? Can't tilt it. We're seeing a lot of the ceiling there. For our viewing audience. Okay, that's fine. Just, can you hold it by the blade, not cut yourself?
But the aspect of it is you need to understand that once the anchor is attached to the Combat Diver 2, it's a completely different knife. And I mean, it has different purposes. The purpose of an anchor and the purpose to repel with remain the same, but it changes the weight and balance and feel of the blade. So once you put that device in and you snap it into place, that's a completely different knife than the 184, completely different. Right. And it anchors differently.
Now, how did you come about this design versus the?
I did not come up with the design. I came up with the requirement And CJ's staff, looking at all of the elements necessary, said, you know, this will probably work. The original one that was sent for the pre-production prototype had a screw, thumb screw, that you screwed in and screwed out. Yeah, but that doesn't. That has a cam, and that really makes it much easier. So as I put my diving gloves on with the first pre-production prototype and got in the pool, I realized that I wasn't going to fumble around enough to get the blade, to get the anchor on or off. So we recognized that that had to be addressed, and CJ's team came up with what I consider to be an excellent design for what was to be done.
Now that requires more parts doing it the way that you did it, CJ. Was that a consideration in production, the screw versus the plunger that we've got here?
Yeah, no, that's the whole manufacturability. The beauty of this exchange, as you're talking with Commander, the beauty of this exchange is having access to that expertise. So the how this knife is going to be used is not our expertise. So for our ability to tap into someone who has that expertise, says this is exactly what I need it to do, we then can look at it and go, this is the best way we can deliver that capability in a very sustainable quality, something we can stand behind. And that was the issue with the screw. The screw was something that as you tightened it, you secured it. So it was always going to be secure, but it turned out not to be as functional as needed in the field because the screw was too small to deal with gloves. So the spring-loaded attachment there is not as tight. It's not as, I'm going to say, it's not as flawless a solution in the field as far as holding that anchor in place, but yet it does a perfectly good job while allowing someone with gloves to use it. So you're always trying to balance the what's the thing, the great with the good, or don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. You're always trying to balance that in a manufacturing
best of all worlds, yeah, kind of deal. Commander, the ORs for this versus the original one, how did they change? What differed in the OR?
The original OR talked about it didn't specify a blade design, but it sort of led the reader to a clip tip sort of blade. It did discuss a hollow handle and survival, the ability to put survival materials in there, whether it's medicine or, whatever. And the second generation operational requirement, which I developed for the Buckmaster 2.0, was fundamentally similar to that, but the serrations were better defined, and the sharpness of the blade and the areas to be sharpened were better defined, and that made things a bit easier for CJ and his team to go forward and take that vision and put it into effect.
Excuse me, I had to cough there. So CJ, when you got do you have the original ORs?
Sitting here, no, we do have them here.
Not for this, but for the original, the one.
For the original Buckmaster?
Yeah, that would be interesting to look at those and then compare them to.
I wonder if we have those somewhere.
Well, I know you have the ones
in Rich's book, maybe.
Oh, you got them in the book, Rich?
I know that he has it for the Mark 9 bayonet.
Yes,
he has that in hand.
Yeah,
because that was that got to be slightly political from my understanding, I wasn't involved with the Mark 9 bayonet at all, but I understood it got to be slightly political. And there were, I don't know how many companies that bid on it, but the extensive tests that were run on that Mark 9
Nice.
are pretty impressive. I mean, it holds up. But you see, it's a blade not unlike the Buckmaster 184,
Right.
in appearance, but it's less severe of a clip tip, and it's just, I think of it as an excellent predecessor to the 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, we learned an enormous amount about heat treat, because one of the things that when you get these operating requirements, a lot of them are dichotomies in writing. So it needs to be light but heavy. It needs to be flexible but stiff. And so you're trying to balance almost these two. You're trying to balance these two opposites and get the best common ground between those two extremes, and providing a product that's not overly, as to reference something Tom mentioned earlier, not overly specific to one use, but more general in design, thus more generally applicable across a broad. It may not be the perfect tool for anything, but it's the best tool for everything that you could have with you. So you're always trying to balance that. So with the, but we learned a lot about heat treat when it came to the bayonet and satisfying all of the different requirements that they put out.
Did you take those lessons learned from that and apply those to the 2.0?
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's, when you think about stories you hear from stuff developed for NASA that ends up in your microwave and that kind of, the military really drives a lot of extreme design because of what they're facing. And so then as you push yourself to accomplish some of those, out of the mainstream deliverables, you do now take those lessons learned and apply them to your other basic products.
Introducing our new belly band holster. Whether you're hitting the gym or running a quick errand, our belly band is one of the most comfortable and safest ways to carry your firearm. The center section allows you to carry most common pistols. Left or right-handed, this has you covered. A hard laminate trigger shield protects the firearm's trigger from unwanted intrusion, giving you ease of mind while carrying every day. 2 elastic sleeves give you the flexibility to carry other everyday items, such as spare mags, flashlight, knife, or pepper spray. 2 zippered pockets run on both sides, offering the option to carry smaller items such as money, cards, or keys. Flush fit on your lower back or waist, easily keeping your setup discreet no matter how you choose to carry. Utilizing 3D spacer mesh, these channels allow for exceptional and efficient airflow, giving you maximum comfort and keeping you cool. Carry whenever you want, how you want, with our new belly band holster. Available now.
Yeah. So another thing that evolved along with the knife, was obviously the scabbard, the sheath.
Yep.
As well. And is that part of the ORs too, or is that just something that after you get the ORs for the knife and you start designing the knife, then you design the sheath around the knife kind of deal?
Well, I looked at the sheath, and my discussions with CJ and his staff was, it's got to be able to get in salt water and be easily maintained, and that tended to put us in the area of Kydex. And I also indicated, unlike the 184, that you can put the pinions in the handle Here, we have to have some way that you can access this, and the final product exceeds my expectations in its usability. It's very usable and easy to access, and I found it to be just spot on for what we needed.
Yeah. So and there's actually some usability within the sheath itself. You've got this hole that you've put through the sheath that I'm assuming that will allow you to deploy the anchor, use the anchor while sheath. Anybody want to comment on that?
That's specific for the military only. The civilian versions will not have that. My son AJ actually came up with that, so it goes in there. The whole idea was to be able to deploy the emergency anchor wing, which, by the way, the original Buckmaster pins anchoring system could hold 250 pounds, and this is rated over 400. Okay, but the cool part is like this. Look, so I am not completely taking off the backing. I can just move it enough, and then you can literally, right there, you have emergency grapple. Okay, that you can attach a carabiner line to, and the ability to not get cut. The original Buckmaster did not necessarily have that ability. And this, if they did it with this, it was if they did it with this, it was more bulky. But this is a very unique way. And the anchoring system also doesn't bump into your hand, if you notice that part. So that's a big deal. But this is really it's again for emergency. And one of our SEAL friends coined that name, the emergency anchor wing, because he felt it should be used only in emergency.
Yeah. You said it's not going to be in the civilian version. Why is it not going to be the civilian version?
Well, we don't want anybody to cut themselves. The original one that my son and I made, which I should have brought that scabbard / sheath, was a lot wider, but they're worried somebody's going to clip the tip of their finger off. They called ours the cigar cutter.
I mean, it's
right here.
Not going to cut their fingers.
I know. It's not. I'm just saying yes. I'm just smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the world of corporate liability.
Yeah, but see, this is again for the military. The civilian version, it will be blocked in like that, so you won't have the ability to actually deploy it unless you modify it. Then it's on you. See, so it is what it is. But it's a cool idea.
I'd say it.
It's a cool idea.
Corporate liability summed it up. Good enough there, CJ.
Yeah. Now, and another cool thing is this sheath is proudly made in the USA. Every single little piece of this sheath is made in the United States in New York with DeSantis gun hide. They're so excited. The DeSantis family is from Gene on down to his sons. They're so happy and honored to be a part of this, and they are just, I cannot tell you how excited they were to just be a part of this situation and the history.
Let me ask you this.
I want to point.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, point it out. You're on a roll.
Something else I want to, I want to point something else out on the heat treat processes, okay?
Sure.
The original Buckmaster, just when they were shipping them out in November 1984, they had 500 of them, and they heard ting, ting, and they didn't know what the heck's going on. It turns out that the area where they screw the blade onto the hollow handle was blowing up because it was tempered too hard. So Paul Boss had to literally get the blades, and he annealed them back, which made the steel more soft in that area so they wouldn't be so fragile. He told me, spent all weekend to do 500 of them, and then they changed that process. Ironically, and I want to point this out, on the pre-production prototypes, it wasn't holding an edge, and Commander Coulter can verify that. I kept five or six blades back purposely to have it heat treated with Paul Boss's recipe. What happened was the heat treater, Paul Farmer, who replaced Paul Boss, had COVID and he was out. So whoever was actually the Buck engineers at the time just heat treated it like a normal a 420. But Paul Boss wrote a special heat treat formula that world famous Joe Hauser, custom knife maker, and CJ's brother-in-law said that this steel reacts more like ATS 34. He was in S30V. He was shocked. So this is the first time in Buck history that they have Boss. It says Boss with a flame and HC. They've never done that for their proprietary because this blade has so many more processes in it for the heat treat. And Paul also got to that level. I mean, he's amazing. He even helped Ruger. Ruger was having a problem with 45s, and their new 45 slide was cracking, and they found out that he retired from Buck, and he moved to Prescott, Arizona at the time, and they hired him specifically to be able to heat treat, and all these young engineers were like, no, you can't do it that way. He solved Ruger's 45 slide problem in like a matter of hours. He did it in one day, and he got a special sum of money, and they made him a special 45, which I told him I'd like to buy from him one day just because of his abilities. But he did the same. Yeah. So before that, he did the same thing on this one. There's different heat treat formulas. I utilize heat treating this particular blade. So some parts are harder, some parts are softer, it's just amazing what he did. So this technology and his wonderful heat treat, and Buck has always been known to have higher quality than anybody else for their even basic knives because of the heat treat formula. It's how much he brought it out. But Paul saved our Buckmaster project also, which I thought it was really interesting that he did that back in 1984. And then here we are, fast forward now in 2021, he redid the heat treat and made it spectacular. So we have tests that Commander ran that were wonderful. And he said, hey, this is perfect. And that was
Lefty, I want to add something to that story in that when you talk about using the 420HC steel, that steel has baked into it an enormous amount of corrosion resistance, which is one of the key when you're talking about a diving knife. That's a key factor is the corrosion resistance. So what Paul was able to do for us was give us a heat treat process that enabled that steel to maintain its corrosion resistance, but also perform like a much higher carbon steel that would have a lot less corrosion resistance. So again, tweaking those extremes, we were able to produce a knife that still maintained the ability to not rust, but outperform what we used to do. And so that heat treat process is now starting to work its way through a lot of other products we make as well.
So another thing that's maybe people may not think about, but this is a full tang knife. The 2.0 is a full tang, where the original 184 was not. And just that alone, the strength and durability that you're getting by this being a full tang, versus the other, which sounds like some of the ORs where it needed to be more utilitarian, to be versatile and more tool-like.
As Commander said earlier, it's a bit of a pry bar. So this one happens to be a pry bar you can shave with if you need to.
Right. Yeah, or cook your hot dog, whatever you need to do. But that's something that I really like about this new version too. Is the full tang. It's thick. It's a robust thickness. I like that. I also like the fact that you didn't go with a round handle again. Which I don't guess you could do.
Yeah, this was. I'm going to show you. So this is a 3D, a 3D printed plastic version. So you make the drawings, and now you print out a version, and you can see how it feels. And so this was the part of the part of the driver for how we manufacture, how we dialed in the shape of this, because it needed to be, you know, one of the operating requirements, if I recall correctly, is you had to be able to orient up and down on the knife, so it couldn't, you didn't want just a universal handle. You wanted to be able to feel up and down. You wanted to know exactly where your serrations were, where your edge was in the dark. When you're struggling to tell, I've never dove in the scenarios that the commander has, but growing up in San Diego, I was a diver, and you know, there are times, I was a surfer as well, so there are times when you can't tell up from down, and so it was one of those important elements. Yeah.
And I dive too, and this would be, you know, this is a great dive knife right here.
But also it's illegal to pry abalone off with something with an edge, so keep that in mind.
I just won't tell anybody. How about that? I'm not going to spill the beans on that. So talk about, you know, because we got a diverse background here that came to make this. So we got, you know, an expert on the consumer side. We got an expert on the military side, you know, that came together to help produce this beautiful combat diver knife. So talk about the synergy that you guys coming together brought to this design.
Yeah, I'll start this one. And I had mentioned it earlier about, you know, knowing what your expertise is and what it isn't, and then if you ever talk to my wife, for me it's knowing when to talk and when to listen. But so in this regard, you know, we knew how to manufacture. We needed the input of, you know, what is the perfect dive knife, and who better to ask than someone with a passion of product development, which Commander brings. There is that background, the innovation, the changes in SEAL practices. You know, there is that passion for innovation, but there's also, and then a deep understanding of how it's used. And when you get to mesh those two things together, that is an amazing resource to tap into. We had, from a consumer side, we then had Dr. Neyman here, who brings the passion and energy of about 6 people into every room he enters. You know, and then from a Buck standpoint, we had the heat treating expertise and experience, the machining expertise and experience. You know, we are very good at turning out one product after another that functions. And it is going to deliver, and the material integrity, the design integrity, the consistency of manufacture. You know, so it was like bringing the opportunity to tap into those 3 areas and drive all of that focus into a laser beam of a product. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. Now, were there any headbutting moments between the consumer side and the military side?
No, I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because, you know, Buck has a lineage of dealing with the military and understands, you know, it's not a new language to them when we start talking about operational requirements. And based on my experience, I know what you can ask for. It's sort of like what you must have and what you'd like to have.
Yeah.
And what you must have is basically the operational requirement. And, you know, aesthetically and bells and whistles, it might be nice to have, but you've got to have the core of the capability of the blade shape, the handle, the anchor. I mean, these are fundamental elements that it's indisputable. And Buck caught on to that very quickly because they've had experience doing it. And so there was, I don't remember any headbutting. I certainly remember cooperation. I certainly remember encouragement, but this wasn't an adversarial development.
Oh, sure.
This was a development of people with a common goal and a common purpose to produce something better than existed.
Sure. And I know that Rich has a lot of ideas, and I was just wondering if maybe there was something that, you really wanted, Rich, but maybe it didn't make it, because I understand that I'm sure the operational
that's funny.
supersede everything.
Yeah. So originally I wanted the saw teeth, okay, and I wanted the hollow handle, but and like Commander said, that Doug Olson made the D01, which was the ultimate copy of the original Buckmaster with the hollow handle, one-piece steel. But I showed CJ at my house originally, and he's like, I love this knife. He says, but we can't produce it. Again, it goes to the manufacturing. We can't produce it. It's going to cost too much. And Commander Coulter, I mean, literally, you're not going to saw, very rarely in an occasion are you going to actually saw wood underwater, right? Because we wanted to build Commander Coulter the best dive knife ever produced, because I remember not bragging, but saying, gosh, I've been thinking about this knife since 1985. And he laughed. It says, I mean, he beat me by, 20 plus years that he's been thinking about it since his Bud's Class 40 back in 1967, a year before I was even born. And that's why after the Buckmaster, the original Buckmaster, was made and produced, he asked a friend of his to build a special dive knife for him. And ironically, and I want to mention this because I don't believe there's any such thing as a coincidence, okay? We all have been around long enough that we don't. It just, things happen for a reason. And that special knife had, a spear point. And believe it or not, in the handle right here, it had this. It didn't have the skull crusher, but it had this. And the Buck engineers came up with this handle by themselves. So it was so cool to see that old knife from 1986. That's when, about the time, mid 80s is when he had that knife custom built, one of a kind. And they match. So it's just really cool how everything came together. Me, I'm Mr. Rah-Rah, right? I do the swag. I make the hats. I got Commander's logo, and the reason for this logo is there's a few reasons if you look at it, okay? First of all, you have the combat swimmer / diver. You have the trident representing the SEALs because you can't legally use the Budweiser any longer, the bowing eagle. It has our knives. Yeah, thank you. It has our knives, and it has a giant squid for our love for Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the books, not necessarily the movie. For me, more the movie because I was that guy. But that's why this. And this kind of encaps the Kraken. This encapsulates the allure of the deep and the danger and the heroes of the SEALs with trident. And to me, Commander Coulter is a hero. Today's a special day for me in a sense. It would have been my late father's 81st birthday, and I am so pleased that this is the day that you picked to do this because he blessed the original Buckmasters, all of them that were made, the prototypes in this group, and he blessed the very first ones that Buck made for us. And on December 2nd, December 3rd, Commander Coulter got a FedEx package of a few. I delivered the rest on December 11th somewhere to him. Some being the heat treated ones with the Boss heat treat, and excuse me. And my father passed away on the 12th. So we have been, Buck Knives is an extremely good Christian company. You read they just have such a wonderful reading, and it's just a good company. And we pray also. And being a Greek Orthodox, living in a church camp since I was a kid, that's why I was running around. And I thought it was fitting for my dad to bless the knives. And there's an old ancient blessing from the 300s in Byzantium to protect the warriors fighting against evil and blessing them. And they, it's just really cool. But I don't mean to sidetrack too much, but that's why this is just such a neat thing. And I believe that I believe that this is actually blessed because this knife, this tough knife, is designed specifically to protect our military and also our civilians. It's just amazing. And there's not a dive knife in the world that has anything like this. We do have a provisional patent specifically for the anchor. And there's also something else I want to point out right here on the anchor, right on the inside. There's a tiny little flathead screw because there's a ball bearing here to tighten it up. For the SEALs, not necessarily do you want it tight, but civilians like it tight. It's funny, when we were showing CJ it the first time, he's like, it's too loose because it's wiggly, and civilians don't like it wiggly. But if you have all kinds of particles in sand and different things, you'd want it looser. But what an ingenious idea. Look how fast it is to take this out and then reverse it. If there's no coral to hook on, you can plug it in the sand. I mean, that was the whole idea, is to just be, it is pure physics. It's so strong here that this special attachment here, that's just to stabilize it. Because honestly, if you broke that and you were still holding on to something, it wouldn't pop out because it's pure physics. It has to literally go down to get out. That's the strengths right here. And this is also made out of 420. And every single little piece on this blade, everything's made here in Idaho by wonderful Americans that work hard and they take pride in America. That's why it's so neat to see, USA. This particular one is the second type of prototype that we changed. But here, I'll show you. Here is the Buck Collectors. Okay, here's the Buck Collectors one. And see right here, it says USA, of course, and here too. But on the collector's version, it's not double-edged. So the civilians will not be getting a double-edged, only the military. So, but
rub it in.
You can see it's the same right there. See how there's no edge in the top? That's going to be the civilian version. And at at SHOT Show this year,
commercial litigation
we're going to introduce.
These damn those civilians just don't know how to handle a knife, do they?
No, well, it's not that.
Government.
It's the
Protect us from ourselves.
It's the damn liberal laws. Buck would be happy to put a double edge on this thing, but there's a lot of states that will not allow this to have a double edge, and that's why.
Damn those states.
Damn those liberals.
Damn those states. Do it anyway.
But there's going to be markings on it that say 40th anniversary. I don't know exactly how or what, but the most important marking besides saying USA on there and Buck is having Paul Boss's, knowing that he came out of retirement to do this for us as a favor to Commander Coulter and to me. And we are honored to have him come out of retirement to do that and write the perfect heat treat formula. It costs way more to make this blade because of that heat treat formula. It takes longer in the facilities. It's super tough to get this special grind that we came up with. But the one knife, if you were asking me what I would have liked to see happen, is I'd like to see the next version of this with this thickness all the way up to here, but actually to the tip, so it's super strong, and have the Talon, which is the Buck model 808 saw teeth that has relief on that with the same actual handle, not necessarily this. We'll figure that out.
But we're not allowed to talk about that because that's a new product idea.
Oh, whoops.
Sorry, I'm not going to edit it out.
He asked.
You can see how difficult it is to maintain Rich's energy levels up.
I'm telling you. I mean, he's on a roll. I was going to let him run out of energy before I interrupted him, but
to hold this in my hand is such an amazing thing. I can't tell you, from all these drawings that we've been throwing back and forth, Commander, myself, for years before we actually approached Buck officially. And Bob started it with us. And poor Bob McDonald, he was the original machinist, master machinist for Frobis. He did this blade, and he was an older gentleman, and he built a sawtooth Tanto, and that was the very first one. And then he built a sawtooth spear point that had an anchoring style system, and the handle was more like the old model 185 with the rivets, the finger grooves in it. But then Bob passed away, and it kind of went on standby for a while. And ironically, in 2019, actually, that's when we met you, Lefty, officially. In 2019, Commander Coulter and myself stumbled onto Doug Olson, who was also part of Frobis, and Commander wrote an operational requirement for this new one. And Doug gladly made the DO1, which was the hollow handle. It's just amazing. It didn't have saw teeth, but it had the same teeth as the old 1911 of dive knives, the Mark V. So on one whole side, it had these fine saw teeth, or fine teeth to cut line. Well,
Rich
Buck
is
can't do
fast, the internet can't keep up with him.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going to
Sorry.
dial you back a
Wait,
little bit.
here.
I'm going to dial you back a little bit because we got to get moving here because I want to get to listener
I'll
questions.
help. I'm kidding.
So,
I'm done. I'll
something
shut up.
I'm interested in is the testing that went behind this, and the hands of the people that you put it in, and kind of the what are some of the tests that it was put through to get to where we're at?
The testing was done by me, and it was basically what they call an operational evaluation. And what I did is I got about 30 or 40 pieces of different line, cable, monofilament, the things you would run into in the water.
Right.
And we had a team of 4 do the evaluation. We had a doctor, actually an emergency room doctor. He did the cutting. And he did the cutting because I wanted to have it done by somebody who was experienced in cutting. We had Victor do the sharpening and determine that every single cut was, adequate and sufficient. We had another gentleman who was the scribe, and I was sort of the director. And it took us a half a day, and we provided the results to CJ and his team. And I felt, you could have it do a lot of things, but my idea for an operational evaluation for a combat diver's knife is not for underwater sword fighting. It's for getting yourself out of situations that require a sharp blade. And that's generally entanglement, or some other form of entanglement. So the testing was that. The technical evaluation was simply the 4 prototypes that Bob McDonald and Doug Olson provided. I had 2 other knives, one from Victor's, or mine from Victor, and the pre-production prototype. And I basically just took all the characteristics, weight, size, all of that stuff. But it was what I consider to be well tested. And the results were provided to CJ and his team, and they went forward with that.
Did you do any bending test?
Yep.
How did you perform the bending test?
Well, the way you do a bending test is that's the piece that is set. You're going to bend it. Where's the elastic range end and the plastic range begin, and then where does it part? I wasn't necessarily high on breaking a blade off, but you could tell that the tip was equally strong as midway down the blade. And I have a vise on my workbench, and we bent it till I felt comfortable, and then it came back into its normal condition. I didn't want to do any destructive testing on it because it just didn't make any sense at the time. But it will bend, and that's not the problem, And Victor, I had him do the bending on it because, he's a craftsman and he's experienced in doing that. And he felt that it was appropriately malleable.
Okay. CJ, did you guys do any in-house test?
More the same, just to make sure that our processes are functioning and are consistent. That was more our testing. We also try and make sure that we do fulfill whatever requirements are made. So we have some edge retention testing machines, the Katra machine that we use, which is a very abusive cutting, so it dulls a blade very quickly. So in a pretty short amount of time, you can tell if what you're doing is making a difference, better or worse, on how it's retaining its edge. We do a lot of Rockwell testing. We do corrosion testing. And then we do some of these deflection, because it's again, that's another one where this material is not really designed to bend once you heat treat it. So there's a slight bit of deflection, but what you want it to be is tough enough that it can take an amount of weight prior to breaking. And so if you're going to pry with something, you want to optimize how hard you can pry before that thing will snap. And so those are the tests that we do, just to make sure that our processes are functioning consistently and properly.
Yeah. Well, how do you do the corrosion test? What's involved with that?
We do there's a couple different things we do, but we kind of do a salt fog. Again, you're trying to mimic a longer time frame in a shorter period of time.
Sure.
So you're exaggerating an impact to get a read in a fairly short amount of time, and that's what we do.
Okay. Let's go to some listener questions now. And today, in addition to our Seal 1 CLP kit, which I don't have it handy, I do have a little bit of the Seal 1 here. Also great for cleaning your knives and protecting your knives from additional corrosion. Seal 1 and done. We're going to be giving away a kit of that. We're going to be giving away a Mission First Tactical, either a drinky drink or a dump tray or something from Mission First Tactical. And then Rich has so generously, again, like he did our last episode, he's going to be giving away his book, the Buckmaster book there, to one of you.
Yeah, and this one's special, just real quick. It's number
Sure.
1 of 25 that I made for the Buck Collectors Club with actual autographs. And here's the new knife. And here is the military spec sheet, and that's hand signed by Commander Coulter. And then the front sign, that little part is signed by Joe Hauser, CJ Buck, and myself. And then you can see it's number 1 of 25. But this is what a special listener is going to get. I saved it, and it has Commander's logo with number 1 on it. And
Yeah, so none of you listeners are eligible for that because I'm going to win that. I'm going to take that one. Well, let's go to the first question here. I'll start at the bottom, work my way up. This is from Bhurst87. Have you had any compliments or complaints from the people that have had them in service so far? When are they going to be available publicly, or are they already? Great question by Bhurst. Who wants to fill that one?
Well, we've handed out a number of blades to operators. The feedback that we've gotten is all positive, no negative. And I don't know when they'll be available commercially. And I would assume it will be sometime after the SHOT Show, but I don't know. And as far as that goes, there's probably at least 35 production models out there in the hands of operators that have all provided positive feedback.
So Lefty, from a more availability standpoint, so we're doing so this was in 1984. So 2024, while it will also be, President Trump's victory tour, it's also going to be the 40th anniversary from 1984. So the 184 now becomes the 084 40 years later. So we're celebrating that 40th anniversary with
Nice.
with I'm not sure what the final number is going to be yet, but somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300, a special limited edition consumer version of this knife. So that will be the first run, that 1,000 or so pieces. And then where it goes from there is going to depend on what feedback we get from our consumers.
Very good. I'm looking forward to that. Tongue for twisting. What's the most unusual knife handle combo you've ever made? I assume this is directed to CJ.
Okay, so what was the question?
What's the most unusual knife/handle combo that you've ever
made? Handle combo. Yeah, the original Buckmaster played in there because that was completely different for us. I don't know. Interesting question. We've done leather wraps, we've done molded wraps. I will tell a story because as the one, we can mold a lot of different things. One of the innovations that we did introduce to the marketplace was we were one of the first people to mold a rubber grip onto a knife, and we did that for our fillet knives. And where that idea came from was it was a material called Kraton, and where that idea came from was our VP of marketing at the time, Jim Bloom, came to us from the golfing industry. And so he had a sense of grip when your hands are wet. Yeah. And if anybody who's played golf in a humid area, you know how important it is to not lose your club at the end of your swing. And so he introduced rubber handled knives. So we were the first ones to do rubber handled knives. I remember, our 110 Folding Hunter, which was the knife I first started making as an employee. We did a Vela, a plastic handle version of that knife, and that was another difficult decision to make because it didn't feel like a buck knife anymore. Yet it was amazingly lightweight, functional. You could drop it off a building and it wouldn't deform like brass would tend to be ruined if it took an impact like that. Anyway, so introducing new materials are probably the most unique things we do.
Okay, Lefty, I'm going to have to pull chocks here. I have another appointment I need to trottle off to.
Okay, something more important than talking lead.
Something more important than that.
Somebody's got to go out there and save lives.
We really appreciate your time today, so thank you so much. And I really am glad that you got this out and produced, and looking forward to it.
It would not have happened without CJ and Rich, so they deserve equal credit, if not more. But thank you all again, and stay safe.
Okay, thanks, Commander.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, so let's knock these out real quick. T Hayden 83. Says, love these episodes. As a former service member, my question is really based around durability. So it's a question posed to any of you who could speak from experience, which I think we're getting ready to lose our experience with a 2.0. How tough is she? We kind of talked about that already. Obviously, she looks great and, dare I say, iconic. Maybe even on par with my beloved K-Bar for looks. But seriously, how much abuse could it seriously take? As always, really looking forward to this and hope everybody's doing well. So we kind of answered that already.
Yeah, Lefty, really quickly, I could say, just from a knife standpoint, this knife is one of the, this knife, as it's designed and as we've produced it, is going to be one of the more tougher of the knives we've ever built. You mentioned earlier just the thickness of the tang, the full tang. Commander mentioned earlier, or Rich did, on the not being a clip point, so that tip is stronger. It's not going to puncture as easily as a clip blade, but it's going to handle abuse a lot better. And so this knife is designed to be tough. The materials were chosen to be tough. The design itself was designed to be tough. So I would say this thing would outperform a lot of the other stuff we make just because of how it's designed.
Yeah.
So it'll be tough. It'll be a tough knife.
It is.
I got feedback that I won't mention names and stuff, but I know for a fact some active in service said it's the toughest knife, dive knife that they've ever had in their lives. And coming from who these people were, obviously in the elk of Commander, it's amazing. So yeah, it's a tough knife. It's a perfect dive knife. Really, I mean,
and there's no hidden features in it either. I mean, you can see how strong it is.
Right.
So that's the beauty of it. It's not complicated. And if something's going to perform, it needs to be simple and not complicated.
It's very well balanced, but it has weight still. And obviously, I've had people hold it. Gosh, it's a little lighter than what I was expecting, but it's heavy. Well, it's a dive knife. It's supposed to be heavy. Yeah.
Looks out Okie Coyotes. What a name. Oh, Lights Out. Sorry, Lights Out Okie Coyotes. Got it. Given some of the knives are used by Special Operation Forces, what has to be taken into account for metal material? Some will see use in various kinds of water or salt water. Is salt water the biggest consideration?
For this particular knife, it was. I'm not going to say that for every sense. For this particular knife, it was a huge reason why we chose that material. You also have to decide how important is edge retention, how important is prying, how important is just as a fighting shape like that. So depending upon your operating requirements, that could dictate a different choice. One of the ways we differentiate sometimes between consumers and military is there's an expectation of military that they will maintain their gear, that's drilled into them, that they will maintain their gear. And consumers, a lot of times we have to really try and make that as easy as possible. The maintenance aspect, if somebody who won't maintain their gear to a certain level, we need to produce something that can survive with that lower level of maintenance. And so that sometimes will dictate our choices too of what materials are chosen.
That was a good question. Here's another saltwater. Let's see. Due to saltwater, I see that 425 stainless was picked. What is the Rockwell of the Buckmaster Dive Pro, and is it different than others?
Okay, so it's 420 HC is the steel, and the Rockwell we're going to get on this one, I want to say, is 57 to 58 Rockwell C. So that's for this particular material. For us to get it any harder makes it too brittle. Get it any softer, and it's noticeably not holding an edge. So again, you're balancing the ability to be ductile and be a pry bar, but also be hard enough to hold an edge. And that's one of the beauties of the Paul Boss newer heat treat process, is it allowed us to get a little bit harder without losing that ductility.
Very good. Do you have anything to add, Rich? Nope. Okay. Mustang Perry. What?
It just all I know is
Okay. Mustang Perry. What were the reasons for changing the blade profile? I think we've answered these. What makes this profile better than the other? So we've gone into that. We talked about that. Anything else you want to add to that?
I did, just losing the serrations along the tip, which made the tip weaker on the original Buckmaster. So again, learning lessons based upon you put this thing out in the marketplace, and you get 100,000 people putting it through its paces, and you get that feedback through our warranty program of what broke and what didn't. And so if we get things back in our warranty program consistently, then we try and build an improvement into the next iteration of that design. So Commander wanted something with a much more stronger tip than the original Buckmaster, because that's how he was going to use it. That's how he saw it being used. And so the profile of the blade really started with a diving knife profile, and that where the other one was almost a buoy blade shape profile. So they just started from different places, and that's how this one came to be.
Let's see. Pew Pew RN. Come on, man. You got to ask better questions than this. Of course, we're going to talk about this stuff right here. You got to do better than that, Pew Pew. Come on. What special design features does the Buckmaster have? I mean, he mailed these questions in. What are the spikes for? I mean, like we're not going to cover that right off the bat. All right, next one. Ton Jones Official. You guys know Ton? You met Ton yet?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. We got the tattooed bald head. He's a character. He says, oh, yeah, here we go. First question is for everyone. What is your favorite EDC and why?
Okay. So this is the 112 Slim Pro. It's S30V steel, which is one of my favorite steels. It's a great everyday carry. It's super light in my pocket. It's slim. It's a clip. I like to wear a knife. I like to wear a knife in my back pocket, not my front pocket. Yeah. So it's light. It's easy. It's easy to access, easy to open, easy to use, and it's G10, so it's tough. Tough as nails. It's male-female fastener for the blade pivot, so you can use it. You can use it hard. It's not going anywhere. It's a super tough folder, and that's my everyday knife to carry choice right there.
Very good.
Rich. And it's got my name on it. Well, my last name anyway.
I think they all do, don't they? You're muted, Rich.
How do you do that? I'm gonna have to remember how to do that.
How to mute?
I said. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Okay. I said, and his autograph. I go all my stuff's autographed. So I know what Commander Coulter carries. He also carries a 112. He has a G10 handle. Also, his blade is a drop point, and he that's his absolute favorite because again, it's just a small, nice knife. He had a Buck 110 that during his service in Asia, he ended up trading or giving some other general from another country at one time, and then he had one that he kept. But mine is a one-of-a-kind G10 handle. It has a Punisher, has RN. It has Commander Coulter's autograph. So I had a Seal Trident lasered, and it also has CJ, his son Josh, and Joe Hauser, and our little combat diver logo. But I like the clip. It has a clip, and it's light and just very strong.
Nice.
And, yeah, the blade's S30V. Yeah.
I don't know what this is called, CJ, but this is mine.
Oh, that's one we did that's a collaboration with Tops we did.
Yeah, this is my favorite EDC. I mean, I carry different ones all the time. I don't carry the same one every day, but I carry this one more than I do others. Just because I like the robustness of it, the thickness of the blade. It's a very sturdy, I like the weight. It's got the glass breaker, and it's got the seatbelt cutter on it, and it's got the little Little screw tool on there.
Phosphorus bronze washers between that blade and the handles. That's why it's so smooth. And that thing is just smooth.
Yeah, it is. I like it. What do you remember what it's called? I don't remember what it's called.
Caesar. The Caesar.
Yeah, the CZRT. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. It's CZRT.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it so much that's worn off. So.
Yeah. It does.
Second favorite is that one, that little small one that you gave me at NRA.
The mini deploy. It was the mini deploy blackout that CJ gave you.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
A little auto.
Yeah, it's automatic.
Yeah.
Mini auto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. That's my second.
Yeah, that's legal in California because the blade has to be less than 2 inches.
Yeah.
So
here's about California.
that's why real men leave California, because you don't want to be limited by 2 inches.
I mean, that's all it takes. Maybe some of us should move to California.
Oh my god. Yeah,
We could do movies. All right. Next part of his question is, it says, this is for CJ. On the Buckmaster, what is the steel and the grind of the 2.0? What's the grind? We talked about the steel. What's the grind?
Oh, well, it's a hollow grind, not a flat grind. I'm assuming that's the question.
Yeah.
So it's hollow ground, double-sided.
on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't meet the lines in the middle, and that's made this a little harder to grind, a little harder to line up the lines, but we wanted to leave meat in the middle. It's part of the toughness of the knife. So instead of doing it like a lot of people do normal daggers, where the two lines come together and meet down the middle, we did this one differently, so to make it stronger.
Yeah, it's hardy. It's a hardy knife.
Yep.
No doubt about it. And that's one of the things I love about it.
That's one of the Buck Collectors one. That there's 100 of these that are shipping out this week or next week, but it's amazing.
Yeah. He also asked, and we've covered this, but maybe didn't go into the details about it. Are the spikes are reversible? And they are. It's ambi on that.
So on the original Buckmaster or the 2.0?
I'm sure he's asking about the 2.0 right now.
Okay.
2.0.
Okay. Yeah, it is reversible, so you can flare them up or you can flare them down.
Yeah, I mean, but it also goes
and
left side over the
completely.
right.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
lefties
On
or
both.
righties.
It's designed. Yeah, and the sheet's
Yeah.
designed that way too. And the anchor holder that's in the DeSantis sheath is also designed to be completely ambidextrous.
Yeah, that was for the very specific reason that the original one we did wasn't. But if you have to stop and orient something in a crisis situation, that's not a good thing. There has to be as little brain work required as possible if you're in some type of emergency situation.
Yeah. He says he loves the innovation, and you get props for the style, extra points. I like it.
We'll take it.
I think he's like campaigning really hard for you to send him one. Bobus 1776. Does making the Buck 110 into an auto affect its overall strength, especially in the lock?
No, the lock is exactly the same. So the only thing we added was the spring deployment. The lock back is exactly the same. So it didn't impact the lock in any way.
Okay. So didn't affect the strength or anything?
No. Nope.
Very good. And then he also says, thanks to Buck Knives for putting up with Marty at the shows. What are you talking about? I'm a delight to
the sacrifices we make.
I'm an absolute delight. Come on. All right, so let's award some prizes here. So of those questions, which one do you think? I think we should give. I saw the one that I think we want to give the seal one to, because I was going to go with that water question. Lights, coyotes, because he asked the corrosion question. We're going to give him the seal package. So lights out, Okie, coyotes. Email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. Let me know what you want. I'm going to need your address so we can send it to you. All right, for the mission first, either a drinky drink or a dump tray, whatever it's going to be this month. The Mission First Tactical prize. Who do you think should get that? Pick one of the questions that we asked.
Yeah, that's a tough. I don't have the questions laying out in front of me. What you got a couple for us? You might get us to choose from.
Just give us like numbers like last time.
Okay.
How many questions, and we'll randomly pick a number.
Got to count. Let's do 1 to 10. Pick a number between 1 and 10.
5.
5. I'm 5. Yep.
I'm gonna do 13 again, Rich.
All right, good.
1. Oh wait, here's another one. I didn't see this. This just popped in. What are the new materials used in the Buckmaster, and what is the reasoning for using those? We talked about that. That's P-Man.
Yep, we hit it.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Mustang Perry. What were the reasons for changing the blade profile? What makes this profile better than the other? I don't think I asked that one.
You did. We talked about the drop. We talked about the steer point versus the clip, and I think that's a great question.
Okay, so there you go. So Mustang, you get the Mission First prize. So email me, talkinglead@gmail.com. You've won before, so you know the routine. And for the book, the autograph book with all the extra stuff, I think that should go to Talking Lead. Oh wait. How do you want to determine that? You want to do random numbers again, or you want to pick a question?
You want to pick question number 13, Rich?
Yeah, I do. What the hell? What was the question? Let's hear it and double check.
Let's hear it. No, you can't do that. You got to pick something beforehand.
Oh, I can't? All right. Yeah, what the hell? Let's see, 13 is my lucky number. And
there's not 13.
Actually, 6. Do 6. It's the 6th. It's my dad's birthday. And CJ picked 5. It's his birthday yesterday. So this lucky, awesome book, we'll give him the 6, whoever 6 is.
2, 3. And I'm not going by the number of questions because some of you asked like 5 questions. So I'm just going by the people who ask questions, and I'm starting at the bottom and going up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is as of we doing this show. So if you post a question afterwards and you're going through there and counting, you say, "Oh, it should have been number 6." Oh, too bad, so sad. Looks like J. Edgar Paradox.
Cool.
At the time.
All right, J. Edgar, you got a very,
what was the
special
question?
Rare book.
So he asked a saltwater question also.
Okay.
Due to the saltwater, I see that 425, blah, blah, blah. He asked the Rockwell hardness. That was a good question.
Yep. Good question.
Very good question.
Yeah.
Good.
So sorry, Ton. You weren't chosen this episode. But thanks to everybody who took part. And again, I apologize. It was my fault because I made a late post and it was a weekend post too. So a lot of people aren't on there and seeing the stuff. But you got to be paying attention. You got to be watching our stuff all the time because you just never know. But that's how you win. You participate, you listen, and then you win. Because I don't contact the winners. They have to be listening and know that they won. So,
all right, good.
And I give you a certain amount of time to contact me. But I know all you will contact me because these are avid listeners that we picked there. I've seen your names before, and I know you've won prizes. So, very good. So, Rich, CJ, and tell Commander, I'm sorry you had to rush off. Appreciate you guys taking the time to be on. It's a very good show. Did we cover everything? Or was there anything else that maybe we should have talked about that we didn't talk about?
One more thing. We must ask you to come visit us at SHOT Show. All you lead heads, come visit us at SHOT Show. We're coming up in January. You're super excited. I'm super excited. And I personally am going to bring some swag. So if you say you're from Talking Lead and you heard this podcast, come visit me.
You know, the odds of them
showing up better would be
to have me there.
That's a discussion
Yep.
with CJ's
We're having that
marketing team.
conversation.
I think
Yeah,
we should make
good.
that happen sooner than later, because I need to lock it in. I
hear you.
All right, lead heads.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys, and thank you. No, seriously, thank you for sending me one. I'm very honored to have received one of the first releases of this, and it autographed, no doubt. So if I am in the booth, I'm going to bring this with me. I'll get it there somehow, and show all the lead heads. Maybe get some more autographs on there. I don't know. Did you sign it, Rich?
I would. That's cool.
Yeah,
I
should
did.
be.
There's a RN somewhere. Maybe on the anchor.
It's on the sheath, but it's not on the.
Really? Okay. Well, we can solve that. I'm honored.
Oh wait,
I'm really honored.
I think CJ signed it. Who's Victor?
Yeah, he did. Victor is armor that worked for Commander Coulter in the 80s.
He was the one that was instrumental in the handle, some adjustments to the handle.
Okay.
And he's the one who handmade a knife for Commander. We just didn't disclose what he actually did.
So I got to get CJ's and I got to get yours, Rich's, on here. So I'll bring that to SHOT Show and get y'all's autograph on there. But yeah, that's coming up a couple of months. Anything new and exciting coming up before the end of the year with Buck? You guys got a Black Friday sale, anything like that going on? Or?
Yeah, well, we do the week after Thanksgiving, we do our factory sale here. So kind of a local community event. We will also be doing some online things and specials. We do our Buck of the Months. We still have November's going, and December's will happen. A small run of custom knives that we do that are only available through our website, and they go really fast.
Yeah, they do.
Other than that, it's preparing for SHOT Show in January, dialing in our final new product samples. We're having our sales meeting right now, so our sales meeting is tomorrow and Wednesday. So those, these are all the things happening to prepare us for what we expect to be a really good 2024.
Very good. I like that attitude. I like that. Rich, what do you got coming up? I know you're working on the book with Commander.
All I'm doing, we're still in the first few chapters, right? But that's working. Also, I'm doing a limited edition prototype that CJ's donating for the Buck Collectors Club, because 100 Buck collectors got the very first run of these, and it was a promise that CJ, myself, and Commander Coulter did for the Buck Collectors Club years ago. So there should be a cool picture. That's like the big contest I'm doing. Is just, you're going to see a lot of cool stuff online, and I have a few very special folks that probably will end up doing some actual videos of this in action. So I'm pretty excited. We'll see what they end up doing. But that's it. I'm so looking forward to going to SHOT. It's going to be a dream come true. We've been talking about this since 2019. Yeah,
it's going to be a big shot. I mean, with 40 years, the 40-year anniversary of the Buckmaster, the release of the 2.0.
We have the beer garden, the Buck Special Beer Social is dedicated to the Buckmaster 2.0 combat diver. So pretty. Are you going to have a
special Buck cup for that? You're going to have the diver.
Yes, we will.
Logo? Nice. Mm-hmm. Oh, I so need to be there.
Yes, sir.
So, Rich, they can get your books. They can go to Amazon, and if you guys just do a search under Richard Neyman, Neyman, then it's going to pull up the M9 bayonet and then the Buckmaster book there.
And here also Buck Knives. So Buck
you can go to the Buck Knives website?
Buck Knives is pretty much exclusive, and that's what I'm doing this next year, is specifically Buck. Amazon's going to be literally just the ebook.
Okay, and is it in the?
Not yet. CJ will have them.
Oh, it's coming.
Yep, it's coming. Yes, sir. And maybe some hats and shirts. We'll see. We'll see what happens with marketing.
I just went to the page of Buck Knives, and I'm loving that.
Isn't that sweet?
That's beautiful. I love that.
With brass elk handle, 124 Frontiersman.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful knife.
Like that. Yeah. So guys, go check out Buck Knives. Go to their website. And monthly they got those monthly short run custom knives.
Yeah, the buck of the month.
Buck of the month.
Buck of the month. We do 12 different small runs, 500, 750, just something unique every month. And sometimes they sell out in a couple hours, sometimes a couple weeks, and then we know we've got a winner or not. But yeah,
even a couple of weeks to sell out. It's still
just a very fun, interesting thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And Leadheads, go check out all our sponsors. Mission First Tactical, go to Mission First Tactical, use the code Leadhead, get 20% off. Seal One, seal1.com, use the code Leadhead, get 25% off there. Factory 47 for our AK Corner logoed items, which the AK Corner, this month we're going to be talking about the light machine guns, that Marco alluded to in our last episode that Rich was on. Defiant Munitions, or use the code Leadhead at Factory 47, get 10% off. Defiant Munitions for all your ammo needs, all caps Leadhead, 10% off there. Keltec, go to keltecweapons.com and use the code Leadhead, get 15% off any of their swag. I've got one of their new shirts right here. It's pretty sweet. I don't know if you guys can see that. But their hats, their shirts, anything that's not a gun, you can get a discount on there. They don't sell guns on their website. And then the Kraken cases, use the code Leadhead or Talking Lead, and you get 10% off there. Which I got to introduce you to this company, CJ, and their cases that they have. They've got this like memory foam that they put in their cases, and they've got rifle cases, they've got pistol cases. This is just their sunglass case, but this would be great for like a really knife. But it's cut resistant. I've taken your knives and I've tried to cut this, and you can't cut it. It's heat resistant up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that.
Wow.
But really cool stuff. I put eggs in here and I've closed them up and tossed it, and it protects the eggs. So really good stuff. And then of course our new sponsors, Whiskey River Beef, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You like beef, you like your meat, you go to whiskeyriverbeef.com, and he took a few more cows to slaughter the other day, so you can get eighths, you can get quarters, you can get half, you can get a whole cow, go in with a buddy, bring a friend, split it, however you see fit. But I'm going to be frying up or grilling up a couple of those steaks this weekend, and I swear they're like 3-4 inches thick. They're big old thick steaks. Yeah, they're very nice. So Whiskey River Beef, go show them the love. Follow them on Whiskey River Life on the grams. Let them know you're Leadhead. So that does it for another episode of the Talking Lead Podcast. Again, Rich, CJ, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a very fun episode for me. Enjoyed it. Been fanboying.
Thank you.
And again, Commander, I'll shoot him a little message and thank him. But until the next episode, Leadheads, as always, keep your loved ones close and your Buckmaster 2.0 even closer.
Yep. Too cool. We love your hat. Too cool.
Oh, and thank you for the hat too. Yes.
Heck yeah.
The swag. I gave the yellow one. I sent it to Jack when I sent him the knife.
Oh.
So I sent him the yellow hat. I thought that because it was a little too big for me. I got a little baby head. So
we'll make him adjust.
She said she didn't our thing.